3 hours. That's how long my daughter lasted before yelling at me like I was some kind of burden she couldn't wait to drop. Too much. We're not your servants. She stood at the foot of my bed arms, crossed her face, twisted in some dramatic mixture of fake exhaustion and real disgust. I was still doped up from the anesthesia, the incision in my stomach pulsing with every breath, and she was yelling at me like I'd asked for a spa day. I looked her dead in the eye and said it slow, clear, and calm. "You have 48 hours to get out of my house. Before we find out how it came to this, if you believe karma always finds its way, hit that subscribe button. And tell me where you're watching from in the comments. My name's Evelyn Madsen. I'm 67 years old and I've lived in Richmond, Virginia nearly my whole life. Taught second grade for 35 years, retired just before the pandemic hit. Widowed at 55. And somewhere along the way I became everybody's safety net. It wasn't something I planned, it just happened. My daughter Taylor moved back in after her divorce said she needed a few months to reset. That was 6 years ago. Then came her boyfriend, Jay, then the job hopping, then the whole wellness influencer thing that never paid a dime. They always had a reason why they couldn't move out. I always had a reason to keep the peace. I paid the bills, did the grocery runs, cooked, cleaned, even helped raise my granddaughter when Taylor couldn't cope with toddler tantrums. I did it because that's what moms do, right, but the kindness just kept turning into expectations. The thank yous stopped. The assumptions grew. Still, I never said a word. Not when Jay accidentally used my credit card to buy his podcast gear. Not when Taylor left my car tank on empty 3 times in 1 week. Not even when they hosted that ugly little dinner party and introduced me to their friends as their landlady. Nope. I stayed quiet. I told myself they were trying, that they were stressed, that maybe I was just being too sensitive. But when I scheduled my surgery, a simple abdominal procedure with a 2-week recovery, I figured it'd be different. I figured they'd take care of me the way I'd taken care of them. That fantasy didn't last long, 3 hours to be exact. It didn't all fall apart in one day. No. It was a slow drip, a quiet erosion. Like water wearing down stone, except the stone was me and the water was entitlement. It started with little things. Taylor asking if she could put her name on one of my credit cards for emergencies. I said yes, thinking it was just a safety net. The first charge was groceries. The second was gas. By the third, an overnight spa package in Charlottesville, I asked if she'd used the wrong card by mistake. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "You said emergencies. Mental health counts, doesn't it?" I didn't push back. I never did. Jay was worse. Always strutting around my house like he owned the place. Playing business guru on Instagram, but never keeping a job longer than 3 months. He'd leave half-eaten food on the counter, dominate the living room with his crypto podcasts blaring, and occasionally toss out little comments like, "Well, Evelyn, you've had your time. It's our turn now." I kept my mouth shut. Told myself I was imagining it. Told myself he was just trying to be funny. Then came the subtle, territorial shifts. My garden, my sanctuary, turned into Taylor's wellness zone. She ordered patio furniture with my Amazon account, set up a content corner with crystals and fake ferns, and went live daily to peddle detox smoothies. When I walked outside one afternoon and found her telling her followers she'd manifested this healing space through struggle, I nearly dropped the pitcher of iced tea in my hand. The guest bedroom I used for quilting converted into Jay's office without asking. My kitchen declared off limits during their cleansing fasts. My life slowly swallowed by their lifestyle. Still I held on. Told myself this was temporary. Told myself I was being generous. Told myself like a fool that love meant giving without keeping score. But then my doctor said the surgery couldn't wait. And everything changed. Because when I needed them, really needed them, they showed me exactly who they were. Jay offered to drive me home from the hospital. Not because he cared, he just wanted to use my car while I was on bed rest. He said it out loud like it was the most logical thing in the world. Since you won't be driving for a bit, might as well keep the engine warm. The moment we pulled into the driveway, I knew I was in for it. The trash hadn't been taken out in days. Mail was overflowing from the box. My front porch, usually neat and swept, looked like a yard sale nobody showed up for. Inside it was worse. Laundry everywhere, dishes in the sink. My favorite throw blanket crumpled on the floor under Jay's sneakers. And Taylor, lounging on the couch in one of my robes, had the nerve to sigh and say, "Glad you're back, Mom. You wouldn't believe how stressful this week's been." I was still groggy from the anesthesia. The pain meds made everything foggy, but not foggy enough to miss the complete lack of empathy in her voice. I muttered something about needing to lie down, and she rolled her eyes like I'd just asked her to dig a ditch. They gave me 3 hours. 3 hours. That's all I got before Taylor barged into my room, arms crossed, face flushed with frustration. "This is too much," she said. "We're not your servants." She wasn't yelling because she was overwhelmed. She was yelling because I asked for soup, homemade broth, the same one I made her every single time she had a cold. Jay hovered behind her in the doorway, pretending to be Switzerland, but doing that thing he does, raising his eyebrows like, "Can you believe this woman?" And that's when I said it. Calm, clear, stone cold. "You have 48 hours to get out of my house." They didn't take me seriously. Of course they didn't. Taylor scoffed and said I was emotional from the meds. Jay chuckled like I'd just told a joke at my own expense. They gave each other that look like I was just an old lady throwing a tantrum. But I wasn't bluffing. I meant every word. They stayed the night anyway, loud in the kitchen, slamming drawers, talking about me like I wasn't 10 feet away. Taylor called her friend on speakerphone and told her I was being extra dramatic, said she was this close to walking out for good, but I'd probably call the cops and fake a fall just to make her look bad. I lay there still sore from surgery, blinking at the ceiling, and something inside me just clicked. It wasn't rage, it wasn't heartbreak, it was something colder, heavier, like a stone dropping into a still pond. The next morning, I didn't say a word. I waited until they went out to clear their heads. Then I picked up the phone and made 2 calls, one to my lawyer and one to the locksmith. I'd had enough. By the time they came back that afternoon, the locks were changed. Their keys were useless. Taylor stood there on the porch, face pale, pounding on the door like a banshee. I opened the door just wide enough to hand her 2 garbage bags with her essentials: toothbrush, phone charger, a couple pairs of leggings, and that tacky rhinestone sweatshirt she loved so much. "You're serious," she snapped. "As a heart attack," I said. She looked past me, trying to see if this was a stunt. Jay mumbled something about legal rights and tenant laws, but I cut him off. "You don't pay rent. You don't have a lease. You don't even have my respect." Taylor's mouth opened like she was going to say something cruel, but for the first time in a long while, she didn't. She just stood there, speechless, and I shut the door. The silence that followed was the most peaceful sound I'd heard in years. They didn't leave quietly. I knew they wouldn't. Taylor never did anything quietly. She screamed outside the front door like a toddler denied candy. Jay threatened to sue, called me unstable, said I was having a geriatric episode. He even pulled out his phone and started filming, trying to catch me yelling, hoping he could twist it into some social media sob story. But I didn't yell. I just stood there, arms folded, eyes clear. And when Taylor shrieked, "You're choosing to be alone after everything I've done for you," I almost laughed. Everything she's done for me. Like what? Eating my food, using my money, turning my house into a backdrop for her fake influencer life. Still, I didn't say it. I didn't need to. The neighbors peeked out from their curtains. Mr. Leary across the street shook his head and went back to watering his roses. Even he'd seen this mess brewing for years. Eventually, Taylor realized the performance wasn't working. She grabbed the bags I'd packed and hissed, "Fine, we'll go, but don't expect me to come running when you're sick and alone." And that one hit deep. Not because it was a threat, but because it was a promise. For the first time since I became a mother, I realized something bone deep and bitter. If I ever needed her again, truly needed her, she wouldn't come. Jay revved the engine of my own damn car, still had the spare key. They peeled out of the driveway like teenagers in a tantrum. I stood in the doorway watching the taillights disappear down the block. Then I walked back inside, locked the door, and let the tears come. Not out of regret, out of grief. Because the daughter I raised, the one I read bedtime stories to, the one I held through fevers, the one I protected from bullies and bad breakups, that daughter was gone. And in her place was someone who saw me as disposable. But if they thought I'd crumble, they didn't know me at all. They'd lit the match. They didn't know I'd spend the next few months gathering kindling. The final blow didn't come at home. It came at church. 2 weeks after I kicked them out, I hobbled into Sunday service, still sore but needing peace. I sat in my usual pew, third row from the front. Then I heard it, Taylor, behind me, loud on purpose, telling anyone who'd listen that I'd lost it, that I was paranoid, that she and Jay had tried everything, but I was just too toxic to help anymore. Every lie dripping in sugar, and people believed her, nodded, patted her arm. I sat there stone still, heart thudding. And then she said it. She kicked us out while she was on meds. Barely conscious. Didn't even remember it later. We forgave her, of course. But it's sad, you know, watching someone unravel. That's when I stood up, turned, faced the entire congregation, and said loud enough for every pew to hear, "Funny Taylor, I was lucid enough to change the locks, and wise enough to keep the footage." The room fell silent. Taylor's smile cracked, and I walked out without another word. The house was too quiet. For the first few days, I relished it. No Jay stomping down the hall like a teenager in combat boots. No Taylor's voice echoing through the walls rehearsing her fake gratitude for the next live stream. Just silence and space. But by the end of the first week, the stillness started to press in on me. It's funny what you notice when the noise dies, the way the sun hits the corner of the dining room table, the faint smell of cinnamon still lingering in the curtains from the last apple pie I baked, the groove in the couch where my granddaughter used to curl up with me for cartoons. I cleaned, not just to tidy, but to reclaim. Every drawer, every cabinet, every closet sorted, scrubbed, aired out. I donated 4 garbage bags of Taylor's old clothes, tossed Jay's broken ring light into the trash with a satisfying clang. I even scrubbed the grout behind the toilet. But it wasn't just about cleaning. It was about clearing their scent, their clutter, their energy. Clearing the lies. The weight of years spent trying to be loved by people who only knew how to take. One night, I stood in the middle of the living room barefoot in an old nightgown and just looked around. It was my home again. Mine. But as I stared at the bare shelf where Taylor used to keep her vision boards, I felt something strange curl in my chest. Not regret, not relief, grief, not just for my daughter, for me, for the woman I used to be, the one who bent and gave and hoped, the one who made excuses and baked peace offerings and swallowed her pain with a smile. Was I too soft, or was I just trying to be loved? The thought made my knees go weak. I sank into the armchair, the one they never liked because it wasn't aesthetic, and I cried. Not loud, not messy, just steady. The kind of crying that comes from deep inside, from all the birthdays spent alone, from all the apologies I gave just to keep the peace, from all the times I whispered, "It's okay," when it really, really wasn't. That night I slept with my bedroom door wide open, no one to tiptoe around, no one to fear. It wasn't supposed to be like this. I used to picture my retirement so differently. I thought I'd spend it volunteering at the library, maybe taking a few painting classes, maybe even going on one of those senior cruises with themed dinners and waltz lessons. But that dream slipped through my fingers the moment Taylor came back. She showed up at my doorstep suitcase in one hand, baby on her hip, tears on her cheeks. "Just until I get back on my feet," she said. I didn't hesitate. I canceled my painting lessons, turned down a group trip to Italy I'd been saving up for. I turned the guest room into a nursery. I bought diapers in bulk and stayed up through teething and sleep regressions while Taylor caught up on rest. And when she said she wanted to go back to school online, I paid for that too. 3 months turned into a year. 1 year turned into 6. At first, I told myself it was temporary, that I was just doing what any good mother would do. But slowly the sacrifices stacked up. A little money here, a favor there, a postponed trip, a missed lunch. And before I knew it, my life had shrunk to the size of their needs. I gave. And still. They wanted more. I remember once, this must have been 4 years ago, I mentioned maybe getting a dog. Something small. Company for when they were out. Taylor rolled her eyes. "Mom, we can't take on more responsibility right now. As if I needed permission in my own home." Jay backed her up, of course. Said the energy of a dog could disrupt the vibration of the household, whatever that meant. I nodded. I always nodded. But that night, I cried in the laundry room, holding a dog collar I'd bought on impulse and hidden under the sink. And now there's nothing stopping me. I could drive to the shelter today and bring home the oldest, scrappiest mutt in Richmond. But something holds me back. Not fear, just exhaustion. Because when you've been invisible for so long, being seen again by even a dog feels like too much. I'm not proud of that, but I'm honest about it. And honesty is where healing begins. A few weeks after they left, I found an old photo album tucked behind the linen closet, thick with dust, heavy in my hands. I took it to the kitchen table and opened it like it might bite me. Page after page of birthdays, holidays, graduations. Memories that once upon a time I thought meant something to all of us. There was Taylor, age 5, wearing a lopsided paper crown I helped her make. There she was at 13, beaming as I held her science fair trophy up for the camera. Then 18, hugging me at her high school graduation while her friends clapped and cheered. We used to be a team, but somewhere along the way, I stopped being a mother and started being a backup plan. I stared at those old photos for hours, noticing things I hadn't before. How often I was behind Taylor, not beside her. How I was always holding something: balloons, bags, car keys, always facilitating, never participating. And there was the last photo I had of us together, Thanksgiving 3 years ago. Taylor had just announced her new business plan, some affiliate program with overpriced supplements. She was glowing. Jay was grinning. And me, I looked tired. Not just physically, soul tired. That kind of fatigue you can't sleep off. The kind that builds when you spend decades loving people who only love what you can do for them. I closed the album and pushed it away. Then I walked to the hallway mirror, the tall one near the entry, and stared at my reflection. My hair had thinned, wrinkles carved deep, skin a little looser than I remembered. But my eyes, still sharp, still mine. I touched the glass, just lightly, as if to remind myself I was still here. I had spent so long shrinking, folding, bending, just to keep a version of love alive. But love shouldn't require vanishing, and I was done disappearing. Let the cracks in the mirror stay. They were proof I'd survived. There are things they never asked about, not once. Like how I grew up, what my childhood was like, whether I had dreams that didn't involve diapers, school lunches, or PTO meetings. They never asked what I gave up to raise them. I was 19 when I got pregnant with Taylor, college dropout, married young. Her father died when she was 10. After that, it was just me juggling 3 jobs, sometimes 4. I used to clean houses in the morning, teach preschool in the afternoon, and waitress at night. They don't know how many nights I cried into cheap mascara. How many times I went to bed hungry so they wouldn't have to. They don't know I once pawned my grandmother's brooch to pay for Taylor's braces, or that I skipped my own birthday 10 years in a row because there was always something more urgent: ballet shoes, summer camp, school supplies. They don't know I turned down a marriage proposal when Taylor was 16 because she didn't like him, and I thought her feelings should come first. They don't know I was scouted for a community theater production once told I had presence timing raw emotion. I said no, of course. Rehearsals would have conflicted with her SAT tutoring schedule. I gave up music, I gave up friends, I gave up parts of myself I never got back. And through it all, I never asked for applause, never asked for repayment. But I hoped deep down that one day they'd see me, really see me. They didn't. Not when they were children, not when they were grown. And now, standing in the kitchen with an old casserole dish in my hands, I realized something sharp and sobering. They never saw me because I trained them not to. I trained them to believe I had no needs, that I was fine, that I was there to catch them. But never fall myself. That was my sin. And now I would teach them something new. What it looks like when the woman who never asked for anything stops giving everything. Because I wasn't just done being used. I was done being invisible. You know, people like to say, that's just how kids are. But I don't buy that. Kindness doesn't skip a generation. Entitlement doesn't happen by accident. We teach people how to treat us every yes, every silence, every time we swallow the hurt for the sake of peace. It adds up. I thought I was being strong by staying quiet. I thought I was being loving by giving endlessly. But strength without boundaries isn't strength. It's surrender. And love, without respect, is just servitude in disguise. So if you're watching this thinking, that could have been me, I want you to hear this loud and clear. It is never too late to reclaim your voice. It is never too late to stop disappearing. And it is never too late to make them see you. I hadn't opened the safe in years. It sat in the back of my closet behind a row of winter coats. The keypad was dusty, the hinges stiff. I had to reset the code twice before it finally clicked open. Inside were the usual things: birth certificates, a few old savings bonds, the deed to the house, and a letter, thick cream paper, handwritten in fountain pen ink folded in thirds. My lawyer, Carol, had slipped it to me during a lunch meeting 5 years back after I updated my estate documents. If you ever need to protect yourself, she'd said, tapping the envelope, use this. Back then, I'd thought it was just legal jargon. Boilerplate language meant to sound important. I didn't really get it, but I get it now. I unfolded the letter slowly, my hands steady. It was a directive. A living trust amendment drafted, signed, notarized. It gave me full control over all disbursements from my estate with a very specific clause: no assets, including residence or savings, shall be transferred to any descendant or their spouse if said party is found to have exploited, neglected, or psychologically harmed the grantor in any material way. Attached was a signed affidavit from Carol dated 3 months prior to my surgery, stating that I had voiced concern over being financially and emotionally manipulated by my daughter and her partner. Carol had asked point blank if I wanted to proceed with the amendment. I'd said yes, not because I thought I'd use it, but because a part of me way down deep knew I might need to. Now here I was holding the very thing that could sever the cord. I read it 3 times, and then I reached for the folder beside it, the one I'd labeled just in case. Inside were flash drives, one for each nanny cam I'd set up in the house. I'd bought them under the guise of home security, but truth be told, I'd wanted a record. Something concrete, proof. I didn't like thinking that way, but I wasn't naive anymore. The footage didn't lie. Jay mocking my surgical scars while Taylor laughed. Taylor calling me a financial dead end. Both of them in the kitchen whispering about how they could convince me to sell the house within a year. I sat at the dining room table until the sun dipped low, watching every minute. And then I smiled. Not from joy, not from vindication, from clarity. They'd written their own ending. I was just going to sign the final page. I didn't go scorched earth right away. No, I wanted this to be elegant, precise. Revenge, when served, cold should also be plated well. First, I called Carol, told her to initiate the trust protections immediately. No announcements, no warnings, just quiet freezes across all potential transfers. Taylor and Jay had always assumed they'd get the house, the savings, even my pension trickle. Let them keep assuming, while the door quietly locks behind them. Second, I contacted the security company, upgraded my system, made sure every room now had better audio cleaner video and remote backups. Not because I planned on more drama, but because I'd learned. I wasn't documenting memories anymore. I was collecting evidence. Next came the digital trail. I logged into my bank account and printed every charge made under Taylor's name from the shared card she forgot I never closed. Hotel getaways, online boutiques, a crystal chandelier from some influencer warehouse in Texas. Thousands of dollars, and not 1 cent paid back. I organized it all in a folder, tabbed, labeled, time-stamped. Then I called Marcus, my son. We hadn't spoken in months, maybe longer. He'd moved out west years ago, always said Taylor drained him too much to stay close. I'd always defended her, always asked him to be patient. But this time, when I told him everything, the surgery, the screaming, the footage, he didn't sound surprised. He just sighed and said, "It finally happened, huh?" Then he said something I didn't expect. "Send me the files, Mom. I'll take care of the rest." I paused. Why his voice was calm. Because if we let her keep rewriting history, she'll bury you with the pen still in her hand. He had a point. So I sent him everything. Every file, every receipt, every clip. And Marcus, sweet, quiet Marcus, who'd spent a lifetime in Taylor's shadow, began the process of setting the record straight. He drafted an affidavit of his own. He scheduled a meeting with Carol. He even called my financial advisor to verify that all future assets would remain under protective lock. And then, without fanfare, he submitted a formal request to the family council for a review of my estate, citing emotional abuse and financial exploitation. Taylor wouldn't know it yet, but the ground beneath her feet had just shifted, and this time I wasn't the one bending. Taylor noticed something was wrong when the checks stopped clearing. She texted me one morning, "Hey, did the bank mess something up? My card got declined buying groceries, LMK." No greeting, no concern, just entitlement wrapped in faux casual tone. I didn't reply. 2 hours later, "Mom, I'm serious. Jay had to cover the bill with his own card and now we're short for rent. Can you please check?" I didn't reply. That night she called. 3 rings, 4, voicemail. I let her sit in the silence. The next morning, Marcus called me. Said Taylor had reached out to him crying about how I was shutting her out and acting crazy. "Don't respond," he told me. "She's trying to bait you into reacting so she can flip the narrative again." He was right. I knew he was right. So I stayed quiet. No texts, no calls, no explanations, just silence. I started going to the botanical garden again. I had let my membership lapse years ago, but I renewed it. Walked the shaded paths with a thermos of tea and my wide-brimmed hat. Let the quiet wrap around me like a balm. While Taylor spiraled, I healed. She posted vague quotes online family is supposed to support, not sabotage. Blood doesn't always mean loyalty. Her friends commented with heart emojis and stay strong messages. I watched, but I didn't speak. And as the silence stretched, the truth started to whisper louder than any accusation she could fling. People noticed, not just online, but here at church, at the co-op, at the neighborhood book club I'd just rejoined. Folks started asking questions. Did something happen with Taylor? Is everything okay between you two? And I would smile. Just faintly, just enough. Everything's unfolding exactly as it should. Because silence doesn't mean surrender. Sometimes silence is strategy, and I was done being loud for people who never listened. 3 weeks passed before Taylor finally showed up, uninvited, unannounced. She banged on the door like the house owed her something. I watched her from the kitchen window for a moment, just long enough to see the frustration simmering under her sunglasses and faux calm posture. I opened the door, but didn't move aside. "We need to talk," she said. I tilted my head. "Do we?" She huffed. "Mom, I don't know what's going on, but you've frozen the accounts, cut off communication, and now Marcus is trying to drag our names through legal mud." "Our names," I echoed. Jay was parked at the curb, arms folded, trying to look important. He didn't get out of the car. Taylor crossed her arms. "This isn't how families handle things." "No," I said, "but it is how grown adults face consequences." She scoffed. "You're seriously going to throw away your relationship with your daughter over what a few arguments you needed space, and we gave it to you." I stepped forward just slightly. "You didn't give me space. You gave me abandonment. And now that the ATM's dry, suddenly you want to reconnect." Her voice sharpened. "I'm still your child. And you're still responsible for your choices," I said, "which brings me to this." I handed her a single envelope. Inside was a formal offer, a one-time severance payment, $5,000 to sever all future claims to my estate. It was clean binding and reviewed by 2 attorneys. Taylor looked stunned. "You're paying me to disappear." "No," I said. "I'm giving you a door. What you do with it is up to you." She ripped the paper in half. "This is disgusting." I didn't flinch. "You have 7 days to reconsider. After that, the trust becomes irrevocable and you walk away with nothing. You're bluffing." "I used to bluff," I said, and now I looked her square in the eye. "Now I just keep receipts." She stood there, mouth open, torn contract in her hand, and I closed the door, slow, final, like the chapter it was. I didn't expect her to take the deal. Pride was Taylor's currency. Even when she was wrong, she had to be right louder. But 2 days before the deadline, Marcus called. "She left me a voicemail," he said. "Didn't apologize. Just said she's thinking about it." "Of course she is," I replied. "Thinking is free." We both chuckled. A small thing, but in that moment, it felt like a bridge rebuilt. That night, I started drafting a letter. Not to Taylor, not to Jay, to my granddaughter. She's only 9. Sweet girl. Loves puzzles and bees and anything yellow. I don't know what stories she's been told these past weeks, what Taylor's spun, but I couldn't let the silence between us become permanent. So I wrote her the truth. Not the legal version, not the angry one. Just the simple kind that I loved her, that I missed her, that I hoped one day when she was older she'd understand why I had to choose self-respect over comfort. I included a little pressed flower from my garden and a note. "When you're ready, this house will still be here." I sealed the envelope and gave it to Marcus. He promised he'd keep it safe. Taylor never responded to the offer. 7 days passed. The trust locked. Final. 2 weeks later, Jay posted a video online titled, "How Narcissistic Parents Weaponize Money." Taylor sat beside him, nodding solemnly, painted in soft light, acting like a victim of elder abuse. They never used my name, but everyone knew. I didn't reply. Didn't defend, didn't need to. Because while they were busy spinning stories, Carol filed the final estate documents with the court. Marcus took over power of attorney just in case anything ever happened to me. The locks were changed again. Security upgraded. A cease and desist sent after Taylor tried to enter the property one last time with a spare key she forgot I knew about. She stood on the front lawn screaming, said I was cruel, said I was throwing away family. But I didn't answer the door. I just watched from upstairs as Marcus walked out and calmly said, "You already threw it away." And this time, when she drove off, she didn't come back. Taylor always thought money just appeared. She never asked where it came from, only why there wasn't more of it. When she was younger, I chalked it up to innocence. When she was older, I made excuses. But now I was done excusing. The first domino fell when the joint credit card attached to my account was permanently closed, declined at her favorite boutique, declined at the salon, declined at brunch. Within 72 hours, she sent 12 texts, 3 voice notes, and 1 frantic email. I answered none of them. Jay, of course, went live on Instagram when your own mother ruins your financial future out of spite. He had no idea I'd already contacted the merchant processors behind his so-called wellness business. Turns out most of his clients were paid for bots and recycled referral links. The moment I forwarded a compiled report of suspicious financial activity, including the charges from my own accounts, his payment platform suspended operations pending review, poof, gone. Just like that, his fake empire collapsed. Next came the landlord. Taylor had never put her name on the lease. Jay had, but the rent. It came from the monthly deposit I sent them under the guise of helping with stability. That deposit stopped. The eviction notice followed. She called me screaming, left a message I didn't bother saving. I did, however, save the one from the collections agency who'd been trying to reach her about the unpaid car loan under my name, co-signed back in 2019 when she promised she'd take over payments within 6 months. I paid it off, then filed a lien on the vehicle. She tried to sell it. They towed it instead. Jay's podcast subscriptions lapsed. His ring light broke. Taylor's online store went dark. Their bank froze the account after suspicious withdrawals started piling up, all traceable back to my documentation. And the best part? None of it was revenge. It was simply accountability. I wasn't tearing anything down. I was just removing the scaffolding they built their fantasies on. And without my support propping them up, they crumbled. They thought they were self-made. Turns out, I was the factory, and I'd shut down production. Reputation was Taylor's currency now. She'd burned through money, burned through grace. All she had left was the illusion of a perfect life, and I was about to light a match to that, too. It started with a simple email sent anonymously to her biggest brand sponsor. Subject line regarding your collaboration with Taylor Madsen. Attached a short edited video. Jay laughing at my surgical scar. Taylor rolling her eyes while saying, "Once the old woman croaks, we're set." No commentary, no captions, just their own words. The brand dropped her within 48 hours. She tried to do damage control, made a tearful video in soft lighting, said the clip was taken out of context, claimed she was heartbroken over a misunderstanding. The comments weren't kind. I used to follow her for her positivity. This feels fake. Why is she always the victim? What kind of daughter says that? A second video surfaced, this time from my front porch cam. Jay cursing at me under his breath. Taylor laughing. Then the moment she shouted, "She's lucky we haven't just dumped her at a care facility." I didn't even leak that one. Marcus did. It went viral. Church friends stopped replying to her invites. Her book club quietly removed her from the group thread. One of her oldest friends, Rachel from high school, left a single comment under her next post. "We see you now." Taylor tried to pivot. Rebranded as a mental health warrior, said she was healing generational trauma, claimed I was abusive and manipulative, a covert narcissist, she called it. But people had seen the footage, people had watched her lie, and the influencer world, it feeds on drama, but it bleeds out fast when the mask slips. Brand after brand quietly pulled back. Followers dropped by the thousands. Her podcast disappeared. Her newsletter went silent. The link in her bio not found. And all I did was let the truth walk out into the sunlight. No rage, no spectacle, just receipts. And when the applause faded and the pity wore off, all that was left was her own echo. Alone. Exactly how she left me. They turned on each other faster than I expected. Jay posted a cryptic tweet. "Some people will destroy their own family just to look innocent." Taylor clapped back the next day on Instagram, live imagine, pretending to be a business partner, then dipping the second things get hard. The cracks widened. Jay started quietly DMing people, old collaborators, former friends claiming Taylor had manipulated him, that she'd staged half their content, that he'd never been okay with how she treated her mom. He even emailed Marcus, tried to get sympathy. Marcus forwarded it to me with one sentence, pathetic. Meanwhile, Taylor was unraveling in plain sight. She posted daily healing updates, but her eyes looked duller each time. The light ring she always used, gone. The background of her videos, just a blank beige wall. And still, she blamed everyone but herself. She blamed me for the money drying up, blamed Marcus for siding with toxicity, blamed her followers for being too reactive, even blamed Jay for not protecting her. Jay finally retaliated with a podcast episode, his last, as far as I can tell, called it Behind the Ring Light, What They Don't Tell You About Influencer Abuse. He didn't hold back. Said Taylor weaponized her daughter for content, that she crafted fake struggles to boost engagement, that she even considered faking a health scare to gain sympathy after the first sponsor dropped her. I didn't expect to feel anything, but I did. Pity. Not for them, for their daughter, my granddaughter, caught between two performative adults unraveling for views. It made me more determined than ever to protect what little future she might still have. So I made a decision. I called Carol, had her add one final clause to my trust. Any funds marked for education would remain available to my granddaughter, but only under the supervision of a third-party guardian, not Taylor, not Jay. Let them fight over ashes. The legacy would pass around them, straight to the only one who hadn't asked for any of this, the only one still innocent. The only one still worth fighting for. It didn't happen the way I imagined. No shouting, no slammed doors, no dramatic scene in the rain, just a quiet knock. And the woman who used to be my daughter, standing on the porch looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. She didn't speak right away. Neither did I. Finally, she cleared her throat. I thought I'd stop by. See how you were. I let the silence stretch, not cruel, just honest. She looked down. I know you probably hate me. I shook my head. No, Taylor, I don't hate you. She looked up, hope flickering in her eyes. I don't trust you, I continued, and that's worse. She swallowed hard. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I raised an eyebrow. You didn't mean to mock me, didn't mean to use me. Didn't mean to spend my money while planning to gut my home like a fixer-upper. Tears welled in her eyes, real ones. For the first time in years, she looked more like the girl I raised than the woman I no longer recognized. I was scared, she whispered. You've always been the strong one, I thought. I don't know what I thought. I nodded slowly, that I'd never say no. She didn't argue. I'm not here to beg, she added. I didn't want it to end like this. I stepped forward close enough to see the cracks in her foundation. It ended a long time ago, sweetheart. You just didn't notice. A long pause. Then I handed her something, a photo of the three of us. Me, Taylor, and Marcus, taken on her 8th birthday, before the rot set in. I hope you find that version of yourself again, I said. She clutched the photo like it might vanish, and for the first time, she didn't demand, didn't argue, didn't plead. She just nodded and walked away. Not a slammed door, not a final scream, just footsteps fading down the path. And when I closed the door this time, it didn't feel like an ending. It felt like peace. The quiet didn't scare me anymore. It welcomed me. Mornings began with coffee in the sunroom, not chaos in the kitchen. I'd sit with my robe wrapped tight, a blanket over my knees, and watch the light stretch across the hardwood floors like it had all the time in the world. I planted tomatoes in the spring. Basil, too. The garden had always been my refuge, but now it was something more. something sacred. Every seed I dropped in the soil felt like a small promise to myself. I walked. I read. I finally joined that watercolor class at the community center. No one asked me for anything. No one tracked my movements. No one rolled their eyes when I paused mid-sentence to collect my thoughts. For the first time in years, I belonged to myself. And it wasn't lonely. It was freeing. Marcus visited more. Sometimes he'd just show up with groceries or a bag of mulch for the yard. He never said much about Taylor, neither did I. But we shared something deeper now, truth, respect, and the unspoken agreement that peace was a currency worth protecting. One afternoon I found my granddaughter's pressed flower tucked in a book I'd forgotten I owned. Yellow Daisy, still intact, still bright. I sat with it for a long time. Then I wrote another letter. Not to be sent, just kept. A letter for her to find one day, to know she was never the reason for the pain, only the reason I held on. And in that still golden moment, I realized something. I wasn't just surviving. I was healing. Not loudly, not for anyone's applause, but deeply, quietly. And finally, for me. It's strange the things you forget you love. I used to dance in the kitchen, not full choreography, just little sways and spins while I cooked. I'd hum along to old Motown records or tap the counter in rhythm with a wooden spoon. Somewhere along the way, I stopped. The kitchen became a battlefield. Groceries argued over diets and forced counters, overtaken by influencer blenders and spirulina powder. The music disappeared. So did the dancing. But now I move again. It started small. A shuffle of feet while stirring soup. A full-body sway while rinsing dishes. Then, one morning, I played Ain't No Mountain High Enough and let myself spin arms out, laugh rising like something reborn. I reclaimed more than the kitchen. I reclaimed Sundays. They used to belong to everyone else, rides, favors, childcare. Now they're mine. I walk to the farmer's market. I pick out bread like it's an art form. I flirt with the peach vendor. His name's Tom. He calls me Sunshine. I reclaimed my closet, donated everything that felt like compromise. The drab sweaters, the stretchy, shapeless clothes I wore to blend into the background, replaced them with color-deep reds, sky blues, the softest yellows. I wear lipstick again, not for anyone, just because it makes me feel alive. And I reclaimed silence, not the anxious kind, the chosen kind, the kind that wraps around you at the end of a good book or settles in with the morning fog. Every part of my house tells a new story now, one of return, not regret. I didn't just take back space, I took back self. And in doing so, I realized something even deeper. They didn't break me. They just reminded me where all the cracks were, and I filled them with gold. It was late afternoon when the knock came. Gentle, hesitant. I opened the door, and there she was, my granddaughter. Hair in 2 loose braids, a worn backpack slung over her shoulder, eyes wide with something that looked like hope and fear. "Hi, Grandma," she whispered. I didn't ask who brought her. I didn't ask why now. I just opened the door wider. She stepped inside like she was entering a dream, looked around the living room, the kitchen, the garden through the back window. "It smells like cinnamon again," she said. I smiled. It always did, just got buried for a while. She didn't say much at first, just sat on the couch, legs tucked beneath her, staring at the photo frame on the side table, one of the 2 of us baking cookies years ago. Then finally, Mom says, "You're mad at her." I sat beside her. I'm not mad. I'm just not letting her hurt me anymore. She nodded like she already knew. "I miss this house," she whispered. "I miss you." And that nearly broke me. I pulled her into a hug, held her tight, breathing in that soft kid scent, crayons, shampoo, and sunshine. "You're always welcome here," I said. "This home, this love, it's yours, no matter what happens between the grown-ups." She pulled back and reached into her backpack, pulled out a drawing. It was us, in the garden. A yellow daisy in my hand. I blinked fast. "Thank you," I said. "It's beautiful." She smiled, shy and proud. "I have to go soon," she said. "But can I come back?" I cupped her cheek. "Whenever you want, sweetheart." And as she skipped back down the walkway to the waiting car, I didn't need to see who sat behind the wheel, because for the first time in months, I wasn't watching who left. I was holding on to who came back. I updated the will one last time. Not out of anger, not to punish, but to clarify. The house would remain in trust, not to be sold, not to be divided. It would belong to my granddaughter when she came of age, held safely until then by a third-party executor, my savings. Set aside in staggered accounts, tuition, healthcare, first home assistance, all under strict conditions. No one would be able to touch it unless it served her growth, her safety, her dreams. There was even a letter written in my own hand sealed with a ribbon, for when you're ready, for when you wonder if you were ever truly loved. I left her more than assets. I left her a map, to remember who I was, who she could be, and how to protect herself from the kind of love that takes more than it gives. I donated the rest, to a shelter for women rebuilding their lives, to a scholarship fund for adult learners returning to school, to the very elementary school where I taught for 3 decades. The principal called me in tears, said they'd name the new library wing after me. I told her I was honored, but the truth is I wasn't doing it to be remembered. I was doing it to leave clean footprints, so no one would mistake the path. This life I'd built, it wasn't glamorous. It wasn't easy, but it was mine. And now it had meaning. Not in the apologies I never got, but in the peace I carved out from the wreckage. A peace that no longer needed approval or forgiveness. Just quiet. And the promise that no woman under this roof would ever be made to feel small again. Not on my watch. Not in my name. Not ever. Some people think revenge is loud. Screaming matches, courtroom battles, public shaming. But the sweetest revenge is peace. It's waking up without dread. It's sitting in your own home and knowing every corner of it belongs to your courage. It's planting tomatoes, taking walks, laughing without permission. It's letting them keep their stories while you write a new one. You don't have to destroy them to win. You just have to stop letting them define you. So if this story gave you the justice you needed, give it a like and hit subscribe. The next one might hit even harder.